Hey, what is up YouTube? This is Powers here with another one of my videos, and today we're going to be doing a Romance of the Three Kingdoms tier list. Now, I've played a ton of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms games. I think they are highly underrated, especially here in the West. But they're some of my favorite games that I've ever played, and we'll get into them. Now, there are some. First of all, I do appreciate that there is a haven't played tier list, because honestly, that's what bothers me with some of these tier lists. It's like games that you haven't really played or don't really have enough exposure to really say anything. But there's not really no tier, so you kind of have to put it at the bottom, near the bottom, or kind of give an educated guess. But I do, just to make things simple, I have thrown the ones that I've never played yet already in this pile. So that's Romance of the Three Kingdoms 1, 2, 3, 5, 12, and the latest one, 14. First of all, 1, 2, 3, I think they're not, I think they're like, you know, where it says Genesis and Super Nintendo. I don't own those consoles, and I don't think they were released on PlayStation. And I know there's also there's things where it's like it's only released in certain consoles here in America, so there's that. 5 never came over for some reason. It's like there was Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4, and then there was 5, and then for some reason 5 they were just like, nah, get that out of here. Don't bring it here. 12 I think is the same thing. I don't believe 12 was ever localized. And 14 just came out, or it came out this year. I'm waiting for a sale, so that's why I haven't picked it up yet. Alright, so I'm not going to start with the first one I've played, but I am going to start with the earliest one of the series that I can reference, and that is Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4. Now, this one is a more ruler-based compared to the other ones. You know, they started changing it to more of an officer-based thing in the later ones. But we'll basically get into it. So basically, this is a grand strategy game. That's what the Romance of the Three Kingdoms series are. And this one came out on the PlayStation 1. I haven't played this one too much yet. I did buy it, and I do like the package because it comes with a map. So I thought that was pretty cool. And also, this has full motion video cutscenes, which is really cool. So it's like everything that happens, you see like these cutscenes play out, and it's really engaging that way. The interface can be a little bit confusing. I feel like the older Romance of the Three Kingdoms games don't have the best UIs, and it definitely does show its age. But I think this one still does have some good qualities to it. Like I said, the FMV cutscenes and some of the way the presentation is, I think it's pretty good. Order can be a little bit annoying to deal with, like to kind of maintain. But I would say I would put this in the C tier. Like I said, it's got some good things, but I will tell you that the later games, in my opinion, do outclass some of these earlier titles. Now, I know there's a lot of nostalgia for these titles, and I understand that, but there's just some things that the newer games does that the old games lack, and vice versa, because some of the modern ones, you know, have their issues too, and we'll get into that. Alright, so I put the wrong one first. I put 6 Awakening of the Dragon first, so I apologize for that. Let me put the 4 here, because that's what I meant to do. And let me just put this here for now. Alright, Romance of the Three Kingdoms 6. It's kind of on the same boat. Haven't played it as much as the first one. Actually, I think it was this one that actually has the map into it, and not 4. 4 does have the FMV cutscenes, though. I remember 6 being a much tighter and much more polished game, but again, I haven't experienced it too much. It's still on that ruler-based mentality, and I do think that overall, from what I've played compared to 4, it was a step up. It was an easier way to kind of maintain things, and like I said, there was just more polish into the title. So we lose the FMV cutscenes, but it overall steps up in terms of gameplay. I wish I had more to say about this one, but again, I haven't had as much experience. I do, like I said, I do think it's a step up from 4, but I'm not sure how big of a leap it is to really justify if it's on the B tier. So I'm gonna put this one, because I'm looking at the other games right now. I think I'll put this one on the B tier for now, actually. And you know, depending on how things go, I may move things. We'll see. Alright, the next one is Romance of the Three Kingdoms 7. Now this one is when they started going into officer mode, which was freaking fantastic. It was one of the best moves, in my opinion, the series ever did, and really made the Romance of the Three Kingdoms games something else entirely. I prefer the officer games compared to the pure ruler one, because here it's like you can be an officer, start from the bottom. You know, you can literally do the start from the bottom, and now we're here. You know, you can just start and just be part of, like, you know, you can play as, obviously you can create a character, or you can be any officer, and it's really awesome. Like, you can probably be like a Shahudun or something under Tao Tao, and then decide to branch off and do your own thing, which is really really cool. What I also like about this one too is that the combat is easily the best in all the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's turn-based combat, and I prefer turn-based over the real-time ones for these games. And with the turn-based, it goes as far as it can with the concept. There's pre-battle preparation. You know, you can get strategies, and if you execute the strategies that you want, you can get bonuses. Now the thing is, there's different strategies, and some are more risky than others, but are highly more rewarding too. And also, you don't know what your opponent does, so you kind of have to predict what your opponent is going to do and try to prevent that as well. Officer skills are very important. It's a nice RPG system trying to level up. You can befriend officers and bonds and stuff like that. This was a huge step up in the series, in my opinion. And this is really what I love about Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I'm not going to put this at S tier, but I will put this at a really, really solid A tier. Honestly, an A plus tier. The only problems I have with it, honestly, is that sometimes it can be very hard to recruit officers. Like, if you don't start with a lot of officers, it can be very hard to recruit officers. Thankfully, later games kind of improve that. Also, fun fact, this had a 2-player mode. And it was actually really cool. I haven't really messed with it too much. But the 8th actually expanded upon it, and we'll get into that. So let's go on to Romance of the Three Kingdoms 8. Now, I will say, for everything that this game does an improvement on, it also takes some noticeable steps back. One thing I like is that the multiplayer is fan-freaking-tastic. The fact that you can basically play as 2 different people is just awesome. It's like, or I think it's multiple, I forget how many, but basically, you know, one person can go and another person can go. So it's like, okay, I actually have a campaign where I'm playing as Zhang Liao, and I made him a ruler, and then I was playing as Zhang He and just doing like all these different tasks, and now I have Zhang He under Zhang Liao. So it's really cool, like, seeing, okay, I'm the ruler, you're the officer, and it's like, all right, you can take care of this side of the kingdom, I'll take care of that side of the kingdom. And it's cool, like, how you two can work together and do so many cool things. Like, oh, this guy's trying to get powerful, but let's, like, lower him. I'm gonna talk bad about him, so then you can put him lower. It's really cool. It's so awesome. I can just imagine, like, if you can find someone that's really dedicated to this game, oh man, you can have amazing opportunities multiplayer wise. But unfortunately, it's a step back combat wise. I did the combat and I was like, it's not as good as 7, which is unfortunate, because like I said, 7 had the best in the series. I also forgot to mention duels and debates and all that stuff is there. I think it's done better in this game than in 7, but I could be wrong there. Overall, I really enjoyed 8. Like I said, I think even though I'm going to put them both on the same tier, because I do enjoy them both a lot, there are some noticeable step backs, like I said, with the combat, and that is a big issue. But at the same time, it does so many other things well, and the potential with multiplayer and all that stuff is far greater in 8 than it is in 7. There's also a bit more expansion on the RPG mechanics. So honestly, I would say 8 probably has the best in terms of officer play. Alright, Romance of the Three Kingdoms 9. Alright, this one, the problem with this one is that they went from the officer mode to the ruler mode, which I don't like that. You already know, like I said. And if you're going to do ruler mode, you have to make it really, really good. And unfortunately, they didn't. They made the switch to real time instead of it being turn-based. They made it to real time. and honestly, it became very frantic as a result. They also introduced tribes, so you have to like manage tribes and stuff. But these tribes can get really, really powerful, and it can get a little unwieldy. They definitely toned it down in 10. But honestly, it just compared to the other like pure ruler types, this just feels like such a step back. It's like they went to ruler mode, but they really never added anything. And honestly, the future games surpass it. And honestly, I would say even 4 and 6 surpass it in some way. Those two feel a little bit more stable and balanced compared to 9. 9 is just not very good, honestly. I know some people like 9, but honestly, I just felt it was underwhelming, and it was definitely a step back, especially when you go from officer mode to pure ruler mode, and you don't do enough to justify it. So I'm gonna put this on the D tier. There are some things, like I said, if you want to like play around with tribes and stuff that they introduced, if you want, and it's not completely terrible. None of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms games, at least in my opinion, that I've played, are completely terrible, but this one is definitely a skippable title. All right, now we're going to my favorite of the freaking series, and that is Romance of the Three Kingdoms 10. My goodness, man. I've played this so many times. This is not nostalgia speaking. I continuously play this to this day. I've lost count on the amount of times I've beaten it. I beat it as a custom officer under Tao Tao. I beat it twice as a custom officer under Tao Tao. I beat it under, in the later scenario, as another custom officer. I beat it as, the unsung hero, Ma Teng, which is why I was playing as him in my 13 review, because, Ma Teng is the hero, the unsung hero of Three Kingdoms. I really enjoyed that. I've beaten it, as a custom ruler. I'm actually doing a campaign now as the Sun family. I started at Sun Jian, and now I'm on Sun Quan, and it's getting really interesting. So that's like at least 5 times I've beaten it. There's probably been more, but I've beaten this way too many times, and I keep coming back to it for more scenarios. This once again goes back to the officer play, and they added a good amount to it. It was a nice return, and they added a good amount to it. You can take quests, so it makes more sense. You can actually be a Ronin, or I should say Ronin. You could be a free officer here, and actually, do pretty well in the game. You can go on a treasure hunt, collect items to help benefit you. You can, the RPG takes a while to level up, like almost impossible to level up your skills. But man, there's just so much to do in terms of quests. Basically, explore the world. It's no longer like a straight turn-based now, so the game moves in real time, which is what I like, because when you're in the battles, as you're doing the battles, there's things behind you going on, and the messenger will tell you, hey, this guy got recruited, hey, this place is getting attacked. So it feels like a constant living, breathing world, something that the previous games lack, and I would say even the future of Romance of the Three Kingdoms lack a little bit, is just that living, breathing world. And it's just awesome just going to these different places, exploring, and again, rising to the top as an officer. I really just like rising to the top as an officer, if you haven't been able to tell. But it's really cool, and the different choices, people trying to ask you to betray, the relationships you can develop, the bonds you can share, the oaths you can swear. Again, great title. Yes, I get it. Some people have issues with the battle system, and yes, some things can be a little broken in terms of like you can really be overpowered if you want. Yes, none of these games are perfect. No game is perfect. There's always going to be flaws with any game you play. It's just if you can overcome those flaws and if you can look past them, and if it's an enjoyable game for you, and it still is for me. I still come back to this one. It's very strong. Alright, the next one is Romance of the Three Kingdoms 11, which is actually the first Romance of the Three Kingdoms game that I reviewed. And here I did a review of playing as a custom officer, Lotsu Fei. Dude was a beast. Great man. This goes back to ruler-based. But honestly, this is probably one of the best in the series for just a pure ruler perspective. Because it plays a bit like a 4X strategy game. It goes back to the turn-based, um, style of things, and it's a mix of Civilization and the older Romance of the Three Kingdoms. And there's a lot to do. The combat is fun with the different tactics that you can perform. The bonds can also help too with the combat. The only issue that I have with Romance of the Three Kingdoms 11, besides being just purely ruler based, which, like I said, I'm fine with this one because it actually adds a lot to it. The problem I have, or two I should say, is the late game. It gets very tedious with transporting supplies from one place to another. And the second one is that it's really hard to trigger historical events, at least in my opinion, because it just seems like when I start with the Yellow Turbans, like Heijin will just expand like crazy and just get very, very powerful, and history doesn't take place, at least every time I play, where Heijin gets taken out by the eunuchs, and basically things unfold. So it seems like it doesn't really follow history all that much, which is a shame because I love the historical events in the other ones, especially in 10. I forgot to mention that too. Honestly, these games have so much going for them. I can't mention everything, and and I'm trying to be as raw and unscripted as possible. So if I was to mention everything in every Romance of the Three Kingdoms game, we'll be here forever. So but yeah, I think this is really good. Still very enjoyable. It just lacks like the RPG elements, I feel like, in the officer play, but definitely one of the best for ruler play. I believe it deserves to be on the A tier. Alright, Romance of the Three Kingdoms 13. Overall, I did enjoy this one, and I have gone back to it. I reviewed this on my channel a couple years ago, one of my higher reviewed videos, and I appreciate all the views, guys. Much appreciated. I enjoyed this one, and I enjoyed the way I did the review on this one, playing as Ma Tang and following his story. What I love again about these Romance of the Three Kingdoms games is the personal stories that you create. And Romance of the Three Kingdoms 13 brought that back, from 11. Because 11 I felt like was missing that story element to it, the personal story element that the other games had. So 13 definitely brought it back. Not as strong as in 10, but still it worked here. We got officer play again, which again, that is always a plus in my book. But there are some issues. Combat was easily the worst of the series. It was not very good. The power-up kit definitely does improve this game tremendously. And so it's kind of like if I was to include the power-up kit, it would influence the game. Without it, it's kind of lackluster, or not lackluster, but you start to see the issues with it the more and more you play, because the Fame and Strategy expansion pack added so much to it. They added so much to officer play. It actually made sense now to be a free officer and be like a bandit queen or a bandit king, whatever you want to do, or just be like an assassin. So there's definitely a lot of elements you could take. You can build up your whole camaraderie, whatever it's called, and get people on your side. And they also improve the combat as well. So the Fame and Strategy expansion pack definitely did a lot to help it. I know that originally I said, I still recommended it, all things considered. But if we're just talking about just the original, it falls on the C tier. But if we're gonna include the the Fame and Strategy expansion pack, it definitely belongs on the B tier, which I think that's where I'm gonna put it ultimately. Like I said, it's still good officer play. I enjoyed it. I've completed 2 campaigns already. Not only the Ma Teng campaign, but also a officer campaign with Zhou Yu, which got very intense by the end of it. and like I said, with this Fame and Strategy expansion pack, getting married, having kids and stuff, it can definitely get crazy. And it adds more to the story element of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms games, which I love. So I definitely think it's still worth it. It gets a little too... it can feel a bit simplistic when it comes to the ruler play. It's not as in-depth as the previous games, but I do like the bond system. I like the quests that you can undertake to help, gain friendship. So I do enjoy those mechanics, and officer play is always great. So not very strong when it comes to ruler play, but I'd say pretty good officer play, especially with the Fame and Strategy expansion pack. All right, so that completes the tier list. Really curious to see what you guys think. Leave me in the comments below. Leave your comments in the comments below. In the comment section below is what I meant to say. Apologies. But yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. I feel like this really depends on where you kind of started with Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and that'll kind of determine which one will be your favorite. That's just my opinion, though. There's so many games. I know some people that still say the first and the second are their favorites, but I don't know if I'd ever want to play those. Just my personal opinion, mainly because it'd be hard for me to get those copies to begin with, and also just, there's so much that these future games do better than those originals from what I can tell. But everyone's entitled to their own opinion. My opinion is not the Bible. It's not fact. So I'm curious to see what you guys feel. Hope you guys are enjoying these tier lists. Like I said, I'm definitely enjoying these. It's a nice diversion from my reviews. Hope you guys are all doing well. Stay safe. Thank you for watching, and as always, this is Powerhouse signing off.